We have a variety of news to talk about today, including some more NHL signings. We have news with some NHL hirings, some broadcast information, as well as some trade rumors concerning Keith Yandle and PierreLuc Dubois, and news on Evander Kane. We'll get into all that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we really do have a variety of everything to talk about here today. We have a lot of news from the NHL, so let's jump right in and get started. Now, first up, we have some hirings and some signings I want to talk about. The Arizona Coyotes have announced they're bringing back probably the best player in franchise history. Longtime captain Shane Doan is going to return to the organization and work in a special capacity here, basically on player development, and will report directly to the CEO as well as being an advisor to the general manager and team owner. So it was speculated earlier in the offseason that Doan might be rejoining the organization in some capacity. Wasn't really sure, but I figured it would be something related to player development, and now that has been made official. Of course, he has worked previously with the league at the NHL offices, and now his tenure there is over, and he officially joins the Coyotes. Obviously, a team like Arizona trying to rebuild that team. Obviously, they've gone through a lot here in the past little while, losing John Chayka. I know right now, obviously, not having full fans in attendance is hurting everybody, but just trying to continue to build a long-term stability there in Arizona. Having Doan, I think, part of the organization will certainly be a good help. So that's a great addition by the Coyotes. Now, as far as some signings go, we had some deals that we thought were going to happen and are finally made official. We have an official signing now between Mike Hoffman and the St. Louis Blues. He signs a one-year deal at $4 million, so that's quite a pay cut. Obviously, this goes to show what times are like in the NHL right now. Obviously, for a player who had a good year last year, coming off making well over $5 million, to go down to $4 million is a big hit. Obviously, we know why. A lot of players like him included. We're kind of waiting things out to see if teams could afford to pay them a little bit more to try to get closer to what they made last year, and if they could. But at least he went to camp on a PTO, which we knew wasn't really a PTO. They wanted to sign him. Just a matter of waiting for the logistics to take place here and to be able to use their long-term injury reserve pool now that we're getting to that point where they can get into announcing the official opening day rosters and that kind of thing. So Mike Hoffman's officially a Blue at $4 million for 1 year. So that, to me, seems like a pretty good bargain deal. Obviously, they have Tarasenko, a long-term injury reserve. If they make playoffs, and even if they go a little ways into the playoffs, they might be able to get him back as well. And, of course, there's no cap in the playoffs. So the Blues very well could potentially have a lot more high-scoring offense heading into that if everything works out. Now, as I mentioned, we have more signings. We had Freddie Claesson signing a one-year, two-way deal with the San Jose Sharks, league minimum deal at the NHL level. He's on waivers, though, because he does need to be cleared through that to be on the roster. Same goes for Freddie Gauthier in Arizona, former Maple Leaf, signing a one-year, two-way contract, league minimum as well. So he's going through the waiver wire as well to see where they can place him if he's not claimed. So, of course, as we'd mentioned in an earlier video, in case you missed it, there's a record number, I believe, of players on NHL waivers today. I lost track exactly, but I know it was over 100 from when I was counting to do the earlier video. So, a crazy number. But, of course, there's also some crazy times in an unusual season where we have all these teams that kind of have no choice but to make cuts. And because the camps are a little bit condensed this year, they kind of had to wait and kind of get as many practices and scrimmages and everything in to kind of decide who they wanted to keep on the NHL roster, who's going to be in the taxi squad, who's going to go back to junior, who's going to go to the American Hockey League, etc. And today is the last day they could put players on waivers if they need to send people down that require it in order to set their opening day rosters. Would need to be submitted by the end of the day tomorrow, and then, of course, be cap compliant as well. And, of course, we're only a couple days away now from NHL action starting in the 2021 season, which is great news, something to look forward to on that front. Now, a few Islander signings are officially made official now as well that we've been talking about for a while, which we suspected but didn't have the full details on. The deal for Andy Green is a one-year deal at league minimum $700K, so he's officially back with the Islanders now. And the Matt Martin contract was indeed a 4-year term, which is quite surprising. $1.5 million AAV, so $6 million total throughout the 4 years. I mean, obviously, basically this was explained saying that they wanted to reward him for being a longtime member of the franchise. Reward him, they certainly did. This is a long term and a fair bit of money, but I know they do value what Martin brings. I just hope it all works out. I did not expect that type of role player to get that kind of term, but obviously we know Lamoriello has certainly been fond of giving out some term here to some of these guys that you don't almost expect. Like look at the Komarov contract, for example, that now they're actually trying to move on from. Same thing with Thomas Hickey, but we'll see what happens here. But certainly some official contracts there with the Isles. A lot of term for Martin, but we'll hopefully see how that works out. Now, as far as broadcasting goes, quick update there in that regard. We know Mike Milbury will not be back with NBC Sports for the coming season. Of course, we wasn't sure how that was going to go after he ended up leaving partway through the bubble after making some inappropriate comments, we could say. We know that he didn't return after that situation for the remainder of the playoffs, and he is not coming back, which I know a lot of people are quite pleased with. And on a side note here, actually, former Leaf bench boss and Team Canada coach Mike Babcock is actually going to be working as an analyst as well with NBC, doing a segment on hardest working players and that kind of stuff. So obviously, this is kind of probably the beginning of the reputation rehabilitation tour is what I think we'll call it. We know a lot of coaches or anybody who kind of needs to kind of rehab their image or try to get another opportunity quite often goes this broadcasting route. It's not unusual at all to see former coaches in that capacity. So we'll see how things go on that front, and we know there's going to be an opportunity coming up. The Seattle Kraken are going to need a head coach, and I know after the season here, obviously by the time we hit summertime, there's going to be other opportunities. You know there's going to be a few coaches let go. There always is, and see if Babcock can be under consideration. But he's still getting paid by the Leafs for a while yet, so obviously he's probably not in any huge rush to get back to work. Now, in some surprising news here as well, we actually found out not too long before I started recording this video that San Jose Sharks forward Evander Kane is filing for bankruptcy, which is hard to imagine considering the amount of money some of these players make. But apparently he has over $26 million in debt. We've seen reports, I think in the last probably week or so, that he was facing a lawsuit from an unpaid business loan. I can't remember all the details on it, but essentially he gets some sort of a business loan to start or invest in a business and hadn't been making payments. Apparently there was a long stretch of time where they were getting payments directly off his San Jose Sharks paycheck, so the Sharks were paying the loan for him or making payments for him and then off of his pay. And then he asked them to stop that. I think it was around a year ago or something to that effect. And now he's facing a lawsuit. And, of course, he's obviously protecting himself now, trying to get out of that by declaring bankruptcy. But for a young man to make that much money, to have that much in debt is certainly quite troubling to hear. But, of course, not everybody manages their money well. Some people get into some bad deals, etc. But I'm sure this more in the situation will evolve here in the coming days. We find out more on the situation. Very unfortunate to see somebody like that go through that. And obviously it looks as though, things have not been managed the best, and some of this might be more unfortunate than others, but at the end of the day, going through bankruptcy is not a good thing, and something that, you wouldn't think somebody making millions of dollars would be going through. But we'll discuss the situation further if we find out anything more as it evolves. Now, as far as today's trade rumor goes, I want to talk just a little bit further updates here on Dubois and Yandle that we talked on yesterday. In the case of PierreLuc Dubois, Elliot Friedman's reporting that the Jackets are getting a lot of offers. People are contacting them from a variety of NHL teams, and they're getting some offers that they find incredibly intriguing, is the word he used. Not to say that they're really going to be, really imminent or close to striking a deal, but as I've mentioned here, talking about the Dubois situation a lot over the past week or so, you can pretty well bet about 3/4 of the league is interested in this young up-and-coming center iceman who had a major breakout season last year, and they're going to have no shortage of offers coming through. I have no doubt about that. This is not surprising news whatsoever. And as we also heard from NHL insiders before, indicating that they felt the situation was probably unrepairable and it might be best for them to all move on sooner than later to eliminate the distraction. But I know there was an update as well that I've seen from another source indicating that he felt that the Jackets were going to try to hold on to Dubois for a little while longer if they could, just to see if there is any way they can smooth things over and obviously make that relationship better, because they really don't want to have to trade him. It's an unfortunate thing. A lot of these types of players, you have to acquire them by drafting them. So obviously, like I said, other teams are lining up. But the fact that they're getting other offers already that they find intriguing, it could very well expedite this process. We've talked about a number of teams lately that have been showing interest based on what we're hearing. We talked about the Rangers yesterday. We've heard about the Calgary Flames. We've heard about a lot of other teams, and I can just imagine the offers that are coming through. So it'll be interesting to see which direction the Jackets go. But if they're getting intriguing offers already, I think a deal happens sooner than later, at least in my opinion. Now, when it comes to Keith Yandle and the Florida Panthers, an intriguing, evolving situation there that I certainly did not expect to see. Elliot Friedman's reporting now that the Florida Panthers are kind of playing hardball with Yandle. We talked about him yesterday and how the Panthers don't seem to see him as being in their top 6 defense now, which is bizarre considering he put up 45 points in a shortened season last year. He's a terrific skater, a long-time NHL player, holds the current Ironman streak, very durable. It's just kind of mind-boggling to go how you can go from that kind of season last year to not even being somebody they view as a top 6 defender, which is really surprising. It's the same coaching staff too, so it's not like there's been a major change of personnel there and they see things differently. But apparently they're trying to convince Yandle, who has a no-move clause, to provide them with some teams that they would like to, that he would consider going to, because they do want to try to trade him. And they're playing hardball, apparently saying, if you don't work with us and you don't give us some teams you will wait for, we're going to sit you out and we're going to, cause you to lose your Ironman streak. That's what it seems, which is quite surprising. Like I'm very surprised by this. So we'll see where things go. I mean, I know there's always a few teams that come to mind when players are rumored to be on the block. I know one team that comes to mind is Boston. He's a hometown Boston kid who's, obviously has a terrific skating ability. They lost Zdeno Chara. They lost Torrey Krug. They could use a left shot defender back there. The salary that he makes might be a bit of an issue, but depending on what they trade out, it could possibly work. I mean, I have no reason to believe that they're having talks or anything. I'm just saying that's what comes to mind. So we'll see where this goes, but I'm sure he'd be fine going home to play for the Bruins. But I just find it mind-boggling that he could go from a 45-point defenseman in under 70 games or whatever it was they played last year to all of a sudden we don't see you as part of your top 6. Looking at their roster, I'm like, what? I don't get it myself. Let me know what you guys think, especially if you've been able to see any Panthers practices or scrimmages or any video that's emerged from that. I really haven't seen a whole lot out of Florida so far during training camp. In that regard, if we had exhibition games, I'd have a little bit more video footage to go on. But we'll see what happens. But apparently the Panthers want Yandle out, and they're kind of being pretty threatening with his Ironman streak to make it happen. So let me know what your thoughts are down below, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.